All right, it is time for a film vlog. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. This is going to be a day of watching movies style film vlog. I did one of these recently, and I really enjoyed doing it, and the editing wasn't actually too bad, so I'm really happy about that. And that inspired me to do it again, and so here we are. So we're going to spend the day watching some movies. Like last time, my goal will be to watch 3 movies during the day, or throughout the day, and I have picked a bit of a theme this time because I thought that might be a fun way to help choose films, because when there's so many options, I can get decision fatigue really, really easily, so much so that I can miss an opportunity to see a third film. So picked a theme, so we're going to stick to the theme as best as possible, and the theme for this one is actually films that I've had some resistance to in some way, shape, or form. So this could be a film that I'm not entirely sure I'm going to like, but I still want to watch. This could be a film that I've tried watching, but there was some technical situation, like that app wasn't working, or some, like last week I had a film that I wanted to watch when it was nighttime, but and it wasn't nighttime yet, so I actually checked what time sunset is today. And I'm hoping to see 2 films before sunset, and then I can watch one film afterwards that's sort of more epic and big and genre, and like, you know, whether it's like sci-fi fantasy or historical epic or something like that. I prefer to watch those films after the sun has gone down because they can be so visually stunning that I like to watch them sort of like movie theater style with like all the lights off. So yeah, so that's, I've definitely had some films that I haven't watched because that's happened, or just sometimes it's a film that like I was really excited about initially, and then like at some point it just sort of became that movie I never got to. And it doesn't mean it isn't a good movie, it just means I never got to it. So that's the theme this week, is anything that I've had some resistance to. I know that's a bit weird. I know it probably would have been easier just to like pick a genre or something, but anyway, that's what came to me, so that's what we're gonna do, and it definitely will get me to watch some movies I've had some resistance to, so I'm really happy about that. Hopefully, we'll see how things go. I did pick the first film, so I don't get stuck in decision fatigue right away, and this sort of actually inspired, I think, the theme. And that film, so this is a film that is a book to film adaptation. I read the book about 2 years ago, and it took me quite a while to finish it. I can't remember how long it took me to finish it. Maybe a year and a half or 2.5 years. It was definitely featured on the Currently Reading Challenge, probably multiple times, but I did end up finishing it 2 years ago. It's been adapted to a film. The film has such a zeitgeist energy to it. I remember everyone was talking about it when it was either released or became available here. And so I think now, finally, I mean, I think this film is maybe 20 years old at this point, maybe more, but I'm gonna finally get to Battle Royale. So I am really excited about this. This is available on Canopy. I think it is also available somewhere else. It's a Japanese film. It is based on the novel Battle Royale by Koushun Takami, translated by Yuji Oniki. So I did read this in 2022. I don't remember when I started it, but that's when I finished it. And so, yeah, so it's been 2 years, which I feel like is a little long to wait for a book to film adaptation. I do like giving myself some time, but over 2 years 2 months I think is pretty good, because I think if you watch an adaptation right away, I can get really just like noticing all of the differences. And I think one of the amazing things about adaptations is that you see what the writer and director of the film brought to life. You know, what themes did they pick out, you know? And like, I think if you watch the adaptation right away, you really can hone in on just the differences. At least I can hone in on all of the differences. Anyway, so 2 years is a little too long, but 3 years would be worse. So today is going to be the day for Battle Royale. I'm really excited. It's about 2 hours, which is a fair amount, and apparently I think on Canopy it is like a director's cut, or not refurbished, but like with all the extra bits. So I don't know. I know this film is going to be very violent, and that is just like, if you can't pick up on the fact that the cover, like someone has a sickle or a lead pipe, and then someone else has, I don't even know what that is. Maybe a crossbow. So, you know, the title sort of tells you what it's about. When I come back and talk about the film, I'll talk about like what it's about. But yeah, so I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to finally seeing it. You know, after hearing about the film for 20 years, and after, you know, it's been 2 years since I read it, and I think it took me 2 years to read it. I mean, it's time. Today's time. So I do also want to share, I have my knitting with me. I did work on this last week as well. So I find having a knitting project makes a huge difference in terms of watching film, in terms of staying focused on the film. I don't know why, but it does. And this is just a simple-ish top-down raglan sweater, and I'm at the point where I'm knitting in the round, and I need probably, I don't know, another foot with no shaping whatsoever. So it's just knitting around and around and around and around. I do count the rows, but I'm like, I don't need to, because I don't need to match them up to anything. And I did do some knitting last week, so I did put it in a fake place marker to show, and I have put in a place marker for where I am now. So this is the back, and I'm just, you know, knit, and we'll see how things go. Did I drop a stitch? Oh no, that was just joining a new ball of yarn. So yeah, so I'm gonna get my knitting is all ready for me. I'm really excited about this. I think this is my third sweater I have done in this style. I only finished one. I have another one where I just have to like weave in the ends, which is just, and do the collar. I have not done a lot of collars on sweaters, which is why I didn't get to that. Anyway, don't have to worry about that today. Just gonna do some knitting in the round. I'm gonna grab a coffee and I'm gonna start watching the movie right away. No hesitation, decision already made. I'm sure I'll get more waffly on film number 2 because I don't know what I want to watch. But for right now, we're gonna start things strong with Battle Royale. There we go. So yeah, uncensored and unrated. Woo! 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 Okay. Okay, so what's it called? Murphy's Law? I feel like that's kind of happening to me right now, because here, I press play. And nothing happens. It doesn't play. Now, I could watch it at my computer, but it is nowhere near as comfortable. I actually can't quite believe this. It's been a bit of a tough week, so watching something at the computer, especially for 2 hours, is not really a smart choice. I'll put it that way. All right, back to the drawing board. I'm genuinely in shock. Okay, I'll figure something out. Okay, I did double check that it's not a Canopy thing. I just picked something from one of their unlimited viewing collections because I thought maybe it's a Canopy thing. No, Canopy's working fine. However, Canopy does have a lot of titles that I think, oh yeah, I want to watch that, and then sometimes I don't get to them. As it's the beginning of the month and I have full credits for Canopy, maybe picking something that is on my watch list for Canopy is a good idea, because there's lots of things there that I'm excited about, or I was excited about when I added them, and then I never got to. Why don't we try that and see how it goes? Okay, so here we are on Canopy, and I think the best thing to do is to go to my list and just see, probably not the stuff, oh, I do want to see this She Is Conan, but I only first heard about that. I'm going to close my eyes and press the down arrow, and so that we get to stuff that's older, so that it fits the theme of the vlog. That feels good. Okay, so is there anything here? Oh, Bel Canto. I never read the book for that. Archangel I did watch. Do you want to see Zulu? I have seen Darkon. Hidden Blade, what's that? That doesn't fit the theme because I can't remember. what it's about. Top secret espionage network. Espionage is, oh, it's Tony Leung. That's why it's on my, I thought that might be why it's on my radar. I am a big fan. Oh, it's a recent release. I do want to see that, but it doesn't fit the theme. Oh, I went back to the beginning. Now we're at the top again. Maybe this wasn't a good idea. I think there's a film called, oh my, will I be able to find something? Voodoo Macbeth. These are a lot of performing art type ones. Center stage, Lupin, dancing. That's when I was doing my dance. Have I seen Shaolin Temple? Okay, I'm not. Oh, Mr. Malcolm's List. Oh, Mr. Malcolm's List. This is a book to film adaptation I read last year. Or some year. I can't remember at this point. Oh, let's go with this. Yeah! Okay, so for some context, I did read the book Mr. Malcolm's List a couple of years ago. It is a historical romance novel, and it's about a guy who has like a list of characteristics for someone he's looking for. But there is a bit of a twist on it. I can't remember if it's that, you know, someone finds out about it, so they make their own list, and there is definitely sort of like a best friend that's sort of meddling a little bit, which honestly is not one of my favorite things for romance trope type things. But I remember enjoying the book, and I remember there wasn't much information about the film release at the time, and then it did come out, and then I didn't end up watching it. So we are in a bit of a similar situation to Battle Royale. There's just not the 20 years difference between hearing about the title and finally getting the opportunity. Maybe it will take me 24 years to get to that one. I just can't believe it. So anyway, something has been picked, so we're gonna watch Mr. Malcolm's List. Okay, I've only just started Mr. Malcolm's List, but I've already like gotten some things. I'm like, oh, ooh, ah, like it's so gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. The color, the cinematography, the costumes. It's set in 1818, so just like the costuming and the settings and the, you know, it's really just. And it's high society type stuff, so it's very lush in that way. But also I'm like, oh yeah, I don't tend to watch or read a lot of books that are romances that are pretty much geared on getting married. Like that is the goal. He has a list. He's looking for someone to get married. They do say, the narration says he's looking for true love. But you know, his way of finding that is by someone who ticks off all the things on his list. So that's like a little like, but it's an interesting premise, and the characters so far are pretty charming, but I don't tend to watch things where that's the focus, so I imagine that might be some of the resistance to watching this. That being said, there are also a couple of things that one of the things that's always nice to see is that the screenwriter is actually the author of the book. I always feel like that lets me settle into it, because I feel like I don't have to worry about like whether things have changed or not, and like I don't know how much. Sometimes I find enjoyment from that, sometimes I don't, but I feel like I can relax into the fact that, you know, they're bringing their vision to life, whether that's by making changes or staying completely true. You know, I feel like you're in good hands with the screenwriter being the author. Now, I will also say that writing a book and writing a screenplay are different skill sets, so, you know, there's that. But it does, for me, I feel like I don't have to worry about it holding true to the story or to the idea. I do think I need to close the windows, though, because it's a very windy day, and I'm worried about my plants knocking over, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to get right back into the movie. So far, it's very charming and lighthearted and sort of, you know, but you know, I don't like the sort of ones that are like, fa, but it's not. It's a little more tongue-in-cheek than that. And those movies are good too. those are fine. They're just not my favorite. So yeah, I'm a little fussy on, I'm a little fussy on historical romancy type things, but so far this feels very fun and I'm looking forward to getting back to it. So I'm going to do that now. My plant spidey sense was definitely on track because this plant was pretty much going to go. All right, let's close this window and let the plants be safe. Yes. Good plants.
The beauty. Now which headdress?
The feathers.
All right, I have now finished watching Mr. Malcolm's List. So this ended up being, actually, I gotta say, quite enjoyable. It's been on my radar for a long time. I actually don't know if I knew it was a book to film adaptation when I read it. I got it from the library, I think during COVID, it might have been even during, I got like a romance bag of when they were doing like mystery bags because you couldn't actually go into the library, so you could ask for a type of bag, and I think that's ended up how I ended up reading Mr. Malcolm's List, because I don't tend to read a lot of historical romances of this vein. I tend to read a lot of medieval or Viking historical romances, not a lot of this period. This was 1818, I'm not sure exactly, is that Regency? Regency is so short, but it has that jovial nature to it, and this definitely had that jovial nature to it that always feels kind of anachronistic, but there it is. So anyway, let's get to the film. So this came out in 2022. It's adapted from a book. It is a historical romance with a bit of a sort of rom-com vibe to it, and it follows, there's a bit of an ensemble cast, but the premise of it is that Mr. Malcolm has a list. He is someone who is a highly eligible bachelor, and so a lot of people are seeking him out, and one of the people in the cast, Julia, she ends up being scorned by him, and quite publicly. And so she learns that he has this list of things that he believes his prospective wife should meet up to. And, she didn't meet up to them. And so when she learns about this, she devises a plan to get some sweet revenge by serving everything he wanted on a platter. And then, see where that goes. Anyway, and so she enlists her friend, Selena, to be this sort of perfect woman to meet, to tick all these boxes, and then chaos will ensue, or will it, or won't it, or those kinds of things. So anyway, so that's the premise, right? He has a list. We have a woman scorned. She's not going to take it, so she's asked her friend for help in giving him what he deserves in a different way than he expects it. So anyway, but the thing is that one of the challenges I had with both the book and the film is I always found it a little hard to understand why Selena would agree to this. She's quite an earnest character, she's quite an honest character, and I feel like the film did a little bit of a better job because she is trying to help her friend, and her friend is quite convincing, but her friend is very much has her own priorities at the forefront, which is her feelings being hurt, and she's not so careful with her friend's feelings. And I always found that to be like, how can you be friends if you don't care what this is, how it's going to impact her, so I've always found that. But I think the film does a good job of giving some humor to things, to lighten things up, and really to show that it's not, that she just is mad, so she's just acting out kind of idea. And, as things are when there's sort of these kinds of situations, whether it's fake dating, whether it's someone, making a bet, like in a film like Can't Buy Me Love or something like that, there's always this, like, for me, I don't like that kind of hook, this sort of idea of going behind someone's back or tricking them or trying to trick them into liking you. I think playing with people's feelings is is not okay that way. And so I always have a bit of trouble with that. But it is a romance novel and it is a romance story. So we do have this sort of traditional structure. And if you read romance, you probably are familiar with it in terms of how things are laid out and how things will clean up, you know. And I think that they followed those beats pretty well, because that's how romance novels work. And they did sort of adhere to that. One of the things that I will say that I thought was really good is I did think the chemistry between the characters was really good. Like it was, you know, quite like just, it was just really there. Like they just really did a great job of bringing that to life. And as the film goes on, we have sort of more characters involved in a bit more of an ensemble cast, and then it gets more sort of chaotic with more, you know, potential hurt feelings or competitive nature or these kinds of things, and things get more and more complicated as they go on and as they perpetuate, and then, you know, we get really complicated, and then it follows that natural progression of the romance genre. And it's not necessarily a natural projection. Natural, what was the word I used? Projection? Anyway, rhythm? I don't know. Anyway, it's just, you know, if you read romance novels, you know how you know how things go. So it does sort of follow that, and you kind of expect that. Like you want things to come together, but you know, but people are hurt, and what are they going to do when they're hurt? And are people going to listen? You know, are people willing to be vulnerable? All of these things. I mean, like the romance genre is wonderful for all of those things, and I think they really did a really great job in the film bringing those kinds of things to light. But it also often had a nice, lighthearted, spirited nature to some of the things, even if they were heavy, but didn't downplay the fact of when people were hurt. And I thought that that was good too. So I thought it ended up having a nice, like the tone was really good in terms of like when things were serious and when things were funny. And I didn't expect that variety, but most of the time it was pretty jovial. And I really like that. It's not something that I seek out, but it's definitely something that I enjoy. So it was really nice to see that this film had that sort of, you know, just I don't know, it's not quirky, but it's just jovial, like, you know, just the I don't know. That was just one of the things that was really lovely about it. So I really ended up enjoying it. But it's not something that I seek out, which I think is one of the reasons why having this opportunity to watch some things that I've had some resistance to is nice, because like I did enjoy it. I just don't normally watch this genre. I don't go for it first, and so this film has stayed on my list for quite some time, and now that I got to it, I'm actually really, really glad that I did. And it was actually a pretty good time of day to watch it. I know you can see the sun coming in, but because a lot of it is like during the day, or brightly lit interiors, it was nice in terms of like when something's really dark. I don't like watching it during the day because then I sort of miss out on the cinematography, but watching something that's this sort of like outside in these beautiful English countrysides, or people playing croquet, or like that kind of thing, or like fancy interiors, and there was lots of opportunity for gorgeous shots. Cinematography, especially in the beginning, was really, really great. The interiors were great, the costume design was great, like all of that was really beautiful, and I also appreciate that from like a creative, artistic standpoint. I love seeing that kind of stuff as well. So that was really good. So this ended up being quite a win. I will say that I did feel like sometimes things wrapped up a little neatly, and I felt like, generally speaking, I thought the acting was pretty good. It was good, but some people were not quite as strong as others. It's not something I always comment on, and I actually usually avoid commenting on that because I feel like that's like there's no value now saying that. like there's value saying that in like a rehearsal, but like the film's already made. There's no bad acting, but there was just a couple of moments where I felt like I felt like I wanted to understand something a bit more, and I felt like that if there were a little more oomph on some of the moments, that would have been helpful. But generally speaking, I thought it was pretty good. And yeah, and I also really liked the only person I recognized from this at all was Theo James, who played Henry, who was a friend of the woman, the friend of the friend. So not the woman scorned, but her friend. She has a connection to this guy Henry, who's played by Theo James. So that was interesting. So, but yeah, I don't normally pick historical dramas. I guess, you know, again, as I mentioned, I think in a different clip, that often they have to do with like just like focusing on getting married. But this really was more focusing about feelings and love and you know, being true to yourself or not true to yourself, or you know, being able to say what you mean and those kinds of things. And I thought it got some really good moments in there, and I thought it had a lot of heart, and I really appreciated that. And it was really great to see a book to film adaptation. I mean, it's something that I used to do all the time. I used to intentionally watch films that were upcoming adaptations and then watch them when they came out, and it sort of fell by the wayside. But I think I actually might go for that, because in terms of picking films today, because initially I was just going to pick films that I was resistant to, but this is a book to film adaptation. So maybe I'll look at my book to film adaptation list and see if there's something else I can pick to watch next. I do have an inkling of what my third film is going to be, and that actually is a book to film adaptation. But the next film I'm not sure on. What I'm going to do is I am actually going to take a break. I'm going to have lunch and then make a tea. Last time I tried to like have lunch while I was watching a movie, it doesn't work for me. I like to have lunch, then like clean up the kitchen, make tea, and then settle in. So I'm going to give myself a little break to do that, and then I will try and find another book to film adaptation to watch. And because, I mean, honestly, I haven't read a book that's been adapted for quite a while. So anything that's been adapted that's available, I have been avoiding. Intentionally or unintentionally, it hasn't made the cut. So generally speaking, I imagine there's a few that I have watched. But yeah, I think that might be where I go next. So this ended up being quite a win. I really quite enjoyed it, and I'm happy that I ended up picking it. So break time, and then we're going to pick the next movie. So we will see what resistant book to film adaptation I will go with next. And lunch. Okay, so I've had lunch and I actually have already made my tea, so I'm hoping to make a decision about what to watch next pretty swiftly. While I was having lunch, I did take a look at Just Watch's news section to see if there was anything new to any of the services I have that was something I have been avoiding, something maybe that I had wanted to see but went off whatever service I had or something like that. Nothing did pop out in terms of that, but I did find this version of the Scottish play, Macbeth, and it's on Tubi, Hoopla, and Prime, and it actually looks really interesting. This says 2018, but Tubi actually says 2020, which is a bit weird, and it took a while for me to find it. The IMDb has a preview for a trailer, but it doesn't show anything. But then I watched the trailer on YouTube, and it looks amazing. Like, it really looks like theater. Like, and so that's good. And I tried to watch enough of the trailer to see if you could see an opportunity for people that were actually saying the dialogue, because the other one just had like a voiceover, and I'm like, no, I want to see them actually saying the Shakespeare lines, because that says a lot. And I will watch any adaptation of Macbeth. Like, that's just the truth. I hadn't heard of this one. It's on my list, and I added it to my Tubi list. I don't think I'll watch it right now because it doesn't fit the spec of what I'm working with today. But if I can't find anything, I will watch it, because I don't want to get too hung up in decision fatigue. But this actually looks really, really interesting and engaging, especially from an art direction point of view. And I love the story. Like, it's so dark and stuff, but I love it. So anyway, so that is my brief interlude before I am going to look for what I'm actually looking for, which I think what I'll do is I'm going to go to my book spreadsheet, my reading spreadsheet, and pull up, I have a tab for book to film adaptations, and we'll start there and see if there's something that I have been resisting. I also have on a projects tab more recent. Actually, I might do that. Okay, I'm going to go to one of those two places. So we're going to switch the view and take a look at my book spreadsheet and see if we can find something to watch. Okay, so I picked out from my last year's spreadsheet, I made a really long list of all of the books I was interested in reading. So these are all reading, and then all of the books that I read that I wanted to watch the adaptation. So, I watched Divergent, Insurgent, and Allegiant earlier this year. The 50 Shades of Grey trilogy. Oh, Blade of the Immortal. Oh, now that has been adapted many times. Let's go to Just Watch. See, we've got a show, a movie. See more results just in case there's something missing. There's a film on Tubi. That doesn't even show there's more results had less results. That's weird. Okay, so the show, man, I love that manga. I thought that was Hoopla. Anyway, that's a TV show, so that's not what I'm looking for. It's the movie I'm looking for, and it's on Tubi. Now, is this the movie I'm looking for? Who is in it? It doesn't say. Let's go to Tubi. I gotta be careful because they usually auto play the movies. I don't want to get in trouble for showing something. Blade of the Immortal. Yeah, I think this is the one that I was... 2 hours, 22 minutes. Yeah, it's by Takeshi Miike. Oh, that's pretty hefty. Okay, so this is really tempting because I loved the manga. I actually completely forgot about watching the adaptation. I've been less on the up and up with watching adaptations. And I think I got stuck between trying to watch the film adaptation versus watching the TV adaptation, and I didn't make a decision, so I didn't watch either. So this definitely feels like it could be a good option. My one hesitation is that I think it might be a little similar to what I want to watch last today. And so I am gonna keep looking, but this is definitely a contender. It is long, at 2 hours and 22 minutes, and it is rated R. So I mean, if you're familiar with the manga, like it's very violent, very violent. So I am tempted though. I am tempted. Okay, so I had another look at the list, and there wasn't anything that really stood out, and I figured, why not go with something that feels like it could be a good pick? So I'm gonna go with Blade of the Immortal. I know it might be challenging because it is a bit longer at 2 hours and 20 minutes. Another reason to avoid something is how long it is. And then also it is R, it's Takeshi Miike, so it's going to be pretty intense. But I really am curious as to the adaptation. I do remember the story and the characters quite well, but it is like a 30-volume manga series, which they're not, even at 2 hours and 20 minutes, you're not going to get it all. So it'll be curious to see what they pull out of the story and decide to go with. I imagine it'll be the main arc and not all of the secondary characters are going to be there, but who knows? Yeah, so I'm curious. I hope that I enjoy it, and we're going to dive right in. So Blade of the Immortal is up next. All right, I think I made a good choice. I'm only not that far in, 12 minutes in. I had a bit of a be still my heart moment with an opening action sequence in black and white. I was... yeah, just... yeah, yep. Super intense, and for some bizarre reason it keeps on having the rated R with a yellow line in the top corner for like the entire thing. Hopefully I'll stop noticing it and hopefully it'll go away, but that's a situational thing. That's not a thing about the movie. But wow, the action was great. Story is intense, because story is intense. And I just yeah, whew. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. I'm really, really happy about this choice so far, and I'm gonna just settle right in and see the chaos ensue, because this one is gonna be a ride. Okay, so I finished watching Blade of the Immortal, and that was really intense and actually quite long. I feel like it's very late in the day now, so I'm a little concerned about that, about getting to another movie, but I will get to that when I get to that. First, let's get to this one. So if you're unfamiliar with the film or the manga or the idea, this is a historical action with a flavor of the paranormal with the immortal element to it. And we're following basically two characters. I always think of this story as a dual protagonist story. We have Rin, who we see here, who seeks out a bodyguard who's played by Manji, and Rin sort of enlists Manji to help her right a wrong that was done to her family. And there's a lot of chaos in the current climate, the current political climate of where they are. There is a sort of troop of people that are I can't remember the term that they use, but it's sort of like encouraging, but not really, all of the local dojos to sort of be under their wing, but that doesn't usually go over very well. So there's lots of chaos in terms of like where people are training or if they're able to train, and there is this sort of like, rogue group of well, they're not samurais if they're rogue, so rogue group of fighters that are sort of, wanting in on wanting to be all of the action in the town, in the neighborhood, in the big neighborhood. That is actually something that I felt like the film didn't do a great job of setting a good sense of like how near or far were they ever, because it always felt like they were around the same area, and in the manga series it felt like they were all over. Now I know it's a like 30 volume manga series, so how do you condense that to 2 hours and 20 minutes? I would actually say they did a really good job. Like they kept the main arc of the story, they kept sort of the major players, including the main antagonist, and then I did feel like we sort of got to see sort of guest starring of a lot of the fighters that were, very iconic throughout the series, but in some ways I kind of felt like it fell prey to a little bit of like just finding an opportunity to see a big fight with this person and this person and this person and this person. So, and I love action movies, so I'm always game for a big fight, but sometimes it felt just like a little like, okay, we'll do a little bit of setup, a little bit of dialogue, a little bit of like, scenario, and then, okay, there's going to be a fight. So that sort of happened like a couple of times, and I did feel like a couple of times the threads and the backstories and the motivation of some of the secondary characters wasn't super clear, and I don't know how much that's important. Like, it's important we understand Rin and Manji and the antagonist and the sort of overarching plot, which was very clear, but I felt like some of the secondary characters, although they shone when they were on screen, and like for me as someone who's read the manga, I was like, like it was like, because the styling in the manga is so specific, you can really tell who was who, and that was really pretty awesome. And they didn't, and of course they couldn't get everyone, but they got a lot of the really awesome secondary characters in there to have some really good fights. And it did shine with some of the fights, especially I felt like some of the fights really early on were really good, really interesting styling, and they had different styling, different techniques, and because I mean often like with this series, each of the sort of secondary characters sort of has their thing that they're like the best at, or they always go to, and so I think they really implemented those things really well, but it did sort of feel like just like sometimes it just felt like randomly we're here and there's a fight and I'm like, what? So I felt like sometimes the story didn't always pull in the threads there, but it's also, I will say that one of the things with this story is there are personal stories, but there is also an overarching political intrigue type story, which wasn't it was never my strongest suit in terms of following, like never, especially if there's any element of espionage or betrayal. I just don't pick up on it till like it's like well past you're supposed to pick up on it, and so it's just not my strong point, and that's fine. But I did feel like the personal character stories were really strong, and then sometimes I felt the overarching story was a little like it just needed a little more, and then a little more connection to the secondary characters. But other than that, I thought it was really engaging. I really enjoyed the fighting styles. It is very bloody. It is very gory. There is, as I said, did I say that there's a fair amount of like maiming? And so that kind of body horror type stuff, if you're into it, this is a good one. But if you're not into it, I mean, it is a fair amount of it, and it is relevant to the story, and is very, very at the forefront of the manga at certain points in the story. So I did feel like one of the things that was a little surprising was I felt like Rin's character was quite young. I know in the manga she, ages throughout this, but this she feels like, I'm not really good with ages, but I feel like she's maybe 14, so maybe a little younger, and I felt like they could have given her a little bit more. She is the daughter of someone who runs a dojo, and I felt like, and we do see her training, but I really wish we saw her fighting more in the story, and even though she is quite young. I felt like she did have skill, and I didn't feel like that didn't get to shine very much, and they did try to have some of the iconic sort of moments and stuff like that, but I felt like they didn't, like it wasn't as successful as it was with some of the other characters, just sort of circumstantially about like sort of how they went about doing it. So, but I really like one of the things that's really great about the manga is the character, the relationship dynamic between Rin and Manji, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was pretty good, and there were some really great moments, but it wasn't as as it's supposed to be subtle though, like it's not supposed to be over the top, of course, but I felt like sometimes it was a little drier or a little less clear or connected, but I think sometimes that's like sort of like the intrigue part of things, or the you need some, what's that called, like when you don't know for sure, what is that called, like doubt? I don't know if that doubt's a bit strong for that, but something along those lines. So it kind of makes sense. But the fighting was great, the styling was great. I in particular loved the opening sequence that was in black and white. I was like, because it just reminded me so much of the manga, because the drawing style of the manga is like really cool, and I really love it. But it is very violent. So as I said, like if that's not your thing, it's not going to be a good pick. There is some challenging situations, so if you have any trigger warnings, it's probably best to look up to see what's in it or what's not in it, from that perspective. But just overall, I'm just really glad that I finally got to see it. It was quite long, and I would say that normally I find the commercials in 2B, like it doesn't really bother me. I don't really notice it too much. I actually felt like there was a lot of commercial breaks, and the commercial breaks had like the same sort of like 4 to 6 commercials, sort of sometimes in the exact same order, sometimes in a different rotation, and they were not well placed at all. Like it really just felt like every like X amount of minutes there was a commercial. Sometimes I don't think it was ever in the middle of a fight scene, but often it was right before a fight scene, so that's not great. So I should have double checked if it was on, I do think I checked, but if it was on like Hoopla or Canopy, or it would have been better to use a credit and watch it without commercials. There's a lot of films I don't mind, but this one, I think because it was really long, and because it has this high intensity tone to it, because that really was like, it was intense the entire way through. So with those things being broken up by like, buy this product, it's just like, and I admit, like when the commercials came on, sometimes I checked my phone, and then when the movie came back, I would pause it because I was in the middle of writing a message or something, and then I would have to rewind it. So it made it not only longer the time in which there were the commercials, but because I had to rewind to catch up. And also sometimes I just rewound to get to see, like, because sometimes it felt like, did I miss something here? And I didn't, but it just, there was like some quick scene changes, and then I'm like, well, where's this going on? So that was not the best. But Tubi is free, and that's awesome in and of itself, and so I appreciate that. But for this particular film, it was not a great fix. So I think for anything over 2 hours, maybe I should see if it's available elsewhere, and go with that route in the future. So that was Blade of the Immortal. I'm really, really happy that I got to it. I don't know what to do next. It is way later than I thought it would be. I'm shocked at how late it is, because I was really hoping to, for my third film, to pick The Three Musketeers d'Artagnan, which I didn't end up seeing last week, but I think it is 2 hours or more than 2 hours. And I'm just feeling like that is too late, too long for this late in the day. And also it is a sweeping historical action adventure-y story, and that's a bit similar to this, other though this is, has a bit of a paranormal spin to it. The paranormal is just the immortal part, and there was another super creepy character that I actually do not remember from the manga that had this sort of paranormal element with them, with their characteristic, with these very strange, like, heads on their shoulder. That character was incredibly creepy. It was pretty early on in it, but it was like, whoa, like, what? Like, I was just like, are we supposed to believe that that's absolutely happening? Like, I was trying to figure out if it was a dream sequence or something, but then it looked like it wasn't. I'm like, that was just really weird. So there was, I guess, a couple of paranormal moments, but mostly it's just the immortal part. Anyway, so up next, I'm not sure what to do. I'm going to take a break and have dinner, but I kind of feel like it would be smarter to pick something that's like an hour and a half, but I might have to go not to my, like, things I've resisted, because I often watch something that's an hour and a half anyway. But I will take a look at my list and see if anything pops out, and I'll double check the running time of The Three Musketeers, because that is, I think it's 2 hours or 2 hours and a bit, and I feel like it's a little late in the day to watch something that long. That being said, I've really wanted to watch it. It was like, I really wanted to watch it last week. I've wanted to watch it ever since it's become available on streaming, and I haven't gotten to it, but I just feeling like maybe today isn't the day for it, but maybe it is. I will take a look and see where the options are, but that was Blade of the Immortal. I actually really enjoyed it. So far today it's been a win-win on the resisted book to film adaptations, so maybe we'll get 3 times lucky on that, or maybe I'll pick something completely different. I'm not quite sure, but only time will tell. So I will see you for pick number 3. And dinner. Okay, I have had dinner, and while I was having dinner, I looked at some of my different lists, both my Excel list and also my watch list on some of the different services, and I found something that might work. It is not that long. It's an hour and 37 minutes. It's from 1970. It is a book to film adaptation, so it fits that theme. The only hesitation, and I do have a slight hesitation, and I have had a slight hesitation on it, is that I'm not 100% sure that I haven't seen it. So that movie in question is Count Dracula. So this stars Christopher Lee. It's from 1970. I believe it's a Hammer horror film. And I think I think I saw some Hammer horror films when I was a kid, but it was before I was actually like notating films that I've seen. So it may or may not be seen. But I don't think so. I don't think I've seen this one. And I've seen a lot of Dracula movies. And if you want, we can just double check that. And I'll show you a little bit on that front. So let's just have a double check. So this is the film. It is on Canopy. It is directed by Jess Franco. It's in English, Spanish, German, and Italian. See, yeah, I really think this is Hammer horror, right? This has got to be Hammer horror. They have a 31 Days of Horror category. Delightful. So yeah, I'm not sure if I've seen it. I've seen a lot of Dracula movies, and if we look at my all films seen list, and I just highlight and look for Dracula, we have The Brides of Dracula, Countess Dracula, Dracula 1931, 79, 92, Dracula 2000, Dracula Untold. That one's, I think, quite underrated. Dracula Pages from the Virgin's Diary. That's a Guy Madden film. Dracula's Daughter. The Horror of Dracula, House of Dracula, Son of Dracula, and then we're back to the Brides of Dracula. So I think it's safe to say I probably haven't seen it. I mean, it's possible that I saw it, as I said, like when I was a kid, but I started tracking film, let's not go into ages, but like I have been tracking all of the films I've seen, I think since 2006. So if I saw it prior to the 2006, or it may or may not be on this list, I did compile a lot of lists, and I did work on watching a lot of vampire films around 2008. And since then, I've consistently watched vampire films. So I think there's a pretty good shot that I haven't seen it, but so that's where the resistance is. I'm thrilled that I found something that's a little bit on the shorter side. So let's get right to it. It is, as I've said multiple times, getting later in the day, and I wish I could sit to a 2-hour another epic historical with the Three Musketeers d'Artagnan, but I think this is a bit more my pace at the moment. Oh my goodness, will I ever get to that movie? Hopefully soon, hopefully soon. Yeah, okay, so let's watch Count Dracula. I just actually read the description, which I don't normally do, but I've read Dracula and I've seen multiple versions of Dracula. And one of the things that's cool about this one, it says that the director Jess Franco and screen legend Christopher Lee collaborated on what they promised would be the most faithful adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel ever filmed. So I'll be really curious to see if I feel the same way. It's been a while since I read Dracula, but I do find that usually stories take some liberties, so it'll be interesting to see what they do together with this one. I'm really excited now. I'm actually really excited, so we'll see how it goes. Klaus Kinski. Oh my gosh. That's the Knights of Dracula. Okay, I had no idea that Klaus Kinski was in it, and it's really strange that his name wasn't sort of more prominent. Also, very strange that all of the intro titles were in French. So maybe it is not Hammer Horror? I guess we just have to continue watching to find out. Okay, I'm just about 15 minutes into the film, and I will have to say that this one so far is actually a lot more formal than I expected and a lot more serious than I expected. I thought it would be very like over the top and melodramatic and stuff like that, and not really at all. Like it's really taking it like it's really on point in terms of the story and what happens like as we go along, and what characters get introduced in which order and all that kind of stuff. So it really is taking to heart that faithful adaptation element of it so far. But I'm just surprised at the tone. Like it really is much more stoic, you know, like it's not dry, but it's just very formal. And also I just love this era of film, like this sort of like late 60s, early 70s, when they do historicals, and like sort of how heavy all of the like art design feels, and the doors, and just like all of that kind of stuff. And it does mostly feel like, and this would make sense, that it was filmed in daylight because of, you know, how you'd had to do things. But there's been some really interesting things with the lighting to make things feel a bit creepy or spooky, and so I'm really enjoying that, and so far so good, although different than I expected. So we'll see how things go. All right, so I guess this is going to be a 2-day vlog. Yeah, I totally fell asleep watching Count Dracula. I am kind of embarrassed. It was late, but it wasn't that late. But I guess it had been a long day. It's actually been quite a long week. I've been had a couple extra things that I had to do that kind of wiped me out. And I wasn't even necessarily going to vlog yesterday, but I thought I would go for it. But I guess it expended more energy than I thought. Anyway, so yeah, and I really thought I didn't think that I was going to fall asleep, but I was like, about, I don't know, maybe half an hour in, I was like, oh, I think I'm just going to take out my contacts because they need to soak for 8 hours, and I was going to wear them again today. And there was something else. I was like, oh, maybe I won't do any more knitting, and I'll just like cozy up under the blanket. And then by that time that was it. So yeah, so I didn't finish watching it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start it again from the beginning, but because I'm not entirely sure where I left off. It was somewhere between 40 minutes and an hour. So I'm going to start it again from the beginning, but I am going to do some multitasking, sort of very not requiring a lot of brain power, attention, but stuff where I can get some other stuff done while the first 40 minutes or so is running. And then once I'm confident, okay, this I haven't seen before, I'm going to switch gears and then watch it intently. I hope that works. I don't want to jump in because I don't remember exactly where I was, but the tone of it is actually, as I mentioned I came out for a clip and said that there was, like, it's much heavier, it's much more drama oriented, it's much more serious and formal than I expected. There are some melodramatic moments, they do get some in there, but generally speaking it's much more like even toned than I thought, and I think that also led to sort of like so, but I think that's more me, it's not the film. But that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put the film on again. I have it with Canopy, you have it for, it depends on the film, but usually it's between 48 to 72 hours. So I have it for a couple of days, but I'm going to get to it today because then I can hopefully close things off. And yeah, so yeah, 2-day vlog, who would have thought? Yeah, so I'm going to rewatch while I'm multitasking the beginning of Dracula, Count Dracula, and then watch the rest of it with full attention. So that's the plan, and we're gonna get to it. So let's see how this goes. All right, here we go. Try number 2. Okay, so I'm now about 49 minutes into the film, and I'm now at the point where I'm feeling like this is familiar, but less familiar than before. So I've definitely seen it to here, but I don't know how much going forward. There was also something that happened that I'm like, oh, that could be one reason why it's hard to tell why I like where things led off. And I think I said this in one of the other clips, is that it does really feel like a very what's that word? Strict is a little too strong, but like the adaptation is quite like, yep, like that and that and that character and that character, including the adaptations don't always include Lucy's fiance, and this one does include that character. I think he's a lawyer. I remember when I was reading the book, I felt like he was one character I never remembered. Like, I just was like, who's, like, it was just like another person. It was like, what, who's that, why are they there? And now that I'm watching this, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of scenes in this current setting that they're at right here in the middle. And I'm like, a lot of films don't even do this part of the story. They use the sort of what happens to them, but they change the settings. And I think one reason why they don't often include Lucy's fiance is because that she's often a character that's seen as like a romantic interest in a way. Well, yeah, she is. So I think sometimes that's why they don't include her fiance, because then it seems like she's more available, sort of. So anyway, so yeah, so this is I'm gonna switch gears to watching intently and see the rest of the film. So here's to Count Dracula, second run, part 2. Okay, I have finished watching Dracula, yay! Or Count Dracula, or as the title card was like Le Nuit or something. So, and because the intro cards were in French. Apparently it's also known as Natchez when Dracula awake, which is at night when Dracula awakens. That was the German title, or one of the German titles. Anyway, and then the French title that comes up. Did the French title come up? I usually take a picture of the title, and I feel like that moment didn't happen, but I think it was in French. Anyway, the intro credits were in French. The outro credits were in French. Apparently it was dubbed into English, but I could not find out from what. I looked in Wikipedia. It was a co-pro between West Germany, Spain, Italy, and the UK. And I couldn't find, and then on IMDb, it lists multiple language. I think even on this it listed multiple language, but it was in English and it had English subtitles. See, it says English, Spanish, German, Italian. So I don't know what language it was originally in. I don't know. And I did wonder if it was dubbed. There were sometimes, especially when there was sometimes Dracula, they had like just square on like shots of him talking, and it was like it's close. But I thought maybe it was just, you know, they did all of the audio after or something. So, but apparently it was dubbed. Anyway, I didn't really notice that too much. I always prefer to watch in the original language, but this is what was available. I did look up, and it actually, even though it is a Dracula film with Christopher Lee in it, it actually is not a Hammer horror film. And I kind of felt like that might be the case because it's a lot more dramatic, it's a lot more dry. There was very little melodrama in this one. There was almost nothing that was, I was going to say funny, and not like Hammer horror films are funny, but they often have sort of like startle moments or like, you know, melodrama or music or just something or a chase scene or something. And this one was very, very even toned all of the way through. There was some really creepy moments. There was some with some scenes, whether it was like special effects or just sort of, you know, just the music and the tone and stuff like that had some of those moments, but generally speaking it was pretty even, and even so much so that sometimes it was just sort of like, we need a scene, we're going to talk about this person because of whatever reason, and then this person is in the next scene. Like it could have had a little smoother, you know, transitions from scene to scene. It was very, in some ways, perfunctory. I didn't explain what this is about. I kind of assume people probably know the story of Dracula. We have Jonathan Harker, who is I believe he's like a legal clerk wanting to be a lawyer. He ends up going to Count Dracula's estate to give him some papers because Count Dracula wants to buy property in the UK. And so he goes to Dracula's castle. Some strange things start to happen, and I think everyone knows that Dracula is a vampire. I don't think that's a spoiler. And so strange things start to happen, and sort of like things go from there. Other characters that are often in Dracula stories are from the book include Mina, who is Jonathan Harker's fiance, Lucy, who's Mina's friend, then Mina's fiance, boyfriend, I'm not sure, is also in this, and he's not often in this. I think I mentioned that in a different clip. And then we have Van Helsing, who is a doctor who's sort of an iconic character within, vampire lore, because he's sort of like the one who knows stuff, and we get different portrayals of him in different circumstances. He is a doctor, but he's also sort of like a vampire hunter, depending on how, what type of vibe the adaptation is. And then we often get the character of Renfield, which we did in this one, and Renfield is played by Klaus Kinski, who's a great actor, Fitzcarraldo. That movie, Aguirre, Wrath of God, like he's a really, really interesting actor. I felt like with this one, knowing the types of work that he does, I knew he was going to be Renfield. Like, it was just obvious. And I felt like he did a good job, but I didn't feel like he had a lot to work with. And Renfield's a character that sort of, I guess he's sort of like Dracula's familiar in a way. He sort of is Dracula, sort of, it's sort of the connection that Dracula has to the world and is able to see things, or he gets Renfield to do his bidding and different things. I did watch the Renfield adaptation like earlier this year, which was so much fun, but very, very, very bloody, but it was a really cool adaptation. So anyway, but with this one, I really felt, I'm a little surprised to say, I'm a little disappointed. It felt very dry. And yes, it was very faithful to a lot of the things in the story, but I didn't feel like there was a lot of tension. There wasn't even a lot of the sort of lure of Dracula, the sort of seductive nature that tends to be the case. Like they had a little bit of that, but like not really. And it just sort of was like, and this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Like it was just plot point with not as much atmosphere and dynamicism and intrigue and suspense and stuff like that. There's so many opportunities for so much of that stuff in Dracula. I know the story really well because I've watched a lot of adaptations over the years, but there's still often something new to bring to the table. So, but I didn't feel like, I did feel like this was faithful, but I didn't feel, and I do love this time period of film where, I really like the art direction. I really like how it feels like theater sometimes in a way. Things feel like sets in a way, and things have to be, pretty over the top, because also, people would see this in the theater, but then when you see it on TV, the TV would be, this big. So it's not like watching it now where, you see something and, the scale is, it's really obvious that it's an effect or whatever, because it's, that's not how it was made. That was not what was kept in mind at the time and stuff like that. So, but I think I love the sort of charm of films and TV series of this era for some particular reason. Who knows why? I just really like it. There's just something about it. But I would say this one wasn't a huge hit for me overall. I've always watched Dracula adaptations. It's just something I always have on my radar, whether they're new or they're ones that I've missed in the past. But this one wasn't, isn't going to be a favorite, and which is too bad because, especially because it's Christopher Lee. He was good. He was good. I really liked him. But I felt like the guy that played Harker, I didn't feel like there was a lot of depth. The guy who played Lucy's fiance, not so much. Even Van Helsing, it was sort of sometimes felt like hit or miss in terms of what was said and what was not said and what was inferred and connecting the dots and it just, I'm kind of okay, we're feeling this is the right thing to do, or you're not going to confide in people, or you are going to confide in people, and are these people even capable of doing what you're doing, and why is this person there now, and do they know how to do that? They only just found out about this. So there was a lot of those kinds of questions, and I wouldn't say it didn't make sense or anything like that, but it's just I felt and some of the things were explained after the fact, but some of the things weren't. So, but there wasn't a huge disconnect anywhere. I just felt like it could have just been smoother. It could have just been smoother in the transitions and the storytelling. It was very by the book, and that, that is a feat in and of itself, and it does sound like that's what they were going for, and that was, a success in that front. But in terms of I want drama, I want intrigue, I want that sort of gothic, elements to it, and we had some, but not tons. So anyway, but I am glad that I watched it. I am glad that I did. It is too bad that I had to watch it over 2 days, but sometimes that happens. That could happen for a variety of different reasons, whether it's falling asleep or other reasons. I mean, come on, who hasn't fallen asleep watching a movie? Just like, I mean, at some point, if you haven't yet, you will at some point. You might not think so. I never thought I would, but it happens. So I did also want to just share an update on my knitting if you want to see how far along I got on this sweater. So I think it actually is going pretty well. I'll show it from the front, and then I put the place markers, the fake place markers, in the back. So I actually feel like it's coming along quite nicely. I do like blue. Probably not a surprise. And so if we look at the side, I'll put these to the side, and you can see, so the pink one was from last week, and the green one, the light green one, was from this week. It looks a bit yellow on screen. So I think I got just a little bit less done. It might be the same because the row that's on the needles always has a different visual impact than the other ones. Oh, actually, no. Well, I don't know. I think both times it was a bit, like about 8 rows. And so I only got a couple rows done per film, and that's okay. I mean, it's a sweater. It's going to take a while anyway. But I do want to get a smaller project. And it was cold this weekend, so I don't know, maybe do some arm warmers, or I don't know, or some like heelless socks, like sort of like leg warmers, like ankle warmers. So something like that might be a good thing to do, because it might be nice to just like be able to start and finish something pretty quickly. But then it's all like, which yarn and where are those needles available and all that kind of stuff. But hopefully maybe next week I'll pick out a project to work on. And yeah, so I feel like things went pretty well. So got to see Count Dracula, and then also watched Mr. Malcolm's List, which was actually, you know, quite a highlight. Like, it was I've been thinking about the film and how like warm spirited mostly it was. It does have some sort of I don't know if you would go as far to say lying trope, but there is a bit of trickery, and I'm not a big fan of trickery and romance together. I don't think it's fair to play with people's feelings. But it had a bit of revenge in it, and then we also continued the revenge theme with Blade of the Immortal, because that's a pretty strong theme in that one. I'm also really glad that I watched that, but I really was a bit of a like realizing watching a film that's over 2 hours on Tubi, not the best bet. So I'll try and make sure I double check to see if it's on a different service, because I didn't even think twice about it, but it ended up adding a fair amount of time to the film, and I don't usually notice it, but I think often when I watch stuff on Tubi, I watch a fair amount of like horror or sci-fi on Tubi, or older films on Tubi, and they tend to be more like an hour and a half, and so adding 50 more minutes is like, you know, a lot more, and so that was a lot more commercial. So that was a bit disappointing, because it just really took a long time, and then it impacted the rest of the day. But then I also, right off the bat, 2 weeks in a row, or 2 times in a row, I've had my first film not work out. So that's really not a good... Anyway, you know, it's like anything else, you know, if something doesn't work, you know, adjust, learn from it, move forward, you know, and just you keep on going. And that's what I did. So it was fun to sort of find a bit of a theme within a theme here this time around, getting the films I had a slight resistance to, and then they ended up all being book to film adaptations of works that I have read. So that was really fun, and it keeps me going on watching some book to film adaptations, because especially if it's been a while, I have some resistance to that, and because I feel like I've missed the opportunity. You know, and I do feel like it would have been for both titles, not so much Dracula, because I read it a long time ago and I've seen many adaptations before I read the book, but like with Mr. Malcolm's List and Blade of the Immortal, I think it would have been better to watch it a little closer, just to be sort of more firmer in the characters and the relationship dynamics, although I didn't feel like anything was unclear or like vastly different. Although with Blade of the Immortal, there was one thing that felt like they added in, and I wasn't sure if it was from the original work, but I don't mind. Even if it wasn't from the original work, I'm like, I understand why they did it. They did it to make something make more sense, and that's fine. I don't think you have to be completely strict on the adaptation. There is an art to adapting, and that's one of the joys I find in watching adaptations, is that you get to see the director and the screenwriter's perspective, and the actors' interpretations of the characters, and all of that is an interesting artistic exercise, and I think is one of the wonderful things about adaptation. So I think, oddly, I think the stronger we feel about the original work, the more critical we're going to be on the adaptation. So in some ways, it's kind of nice to watch stuff where I have some distance from it. Although that being said, Blade of the Immortal I feel very strongly about, and I loved that series. A lot of it was very, very violent. The film was very, very violent, but I loved it, and I loved the artwork in it so much, and I really felt like at times they did really capture that. Not always, but at times, in those moments where they were really something special. So that was really great, and I wasn't quite expecting that from Takeshi Miike, but hey, why not? Why not? So that was really wonderful, and I gotta look at his filmography too and see. I'm sure I have a lot of missing links there, so which is a whole other theme I could do at some point, like missing links of either directors or actors or genres. I always love doing experiments or projects like that. So anyway, always ideas for another day, but I think I'm gonna leave that here. It's been a long, more than one day-ish, but good. I'm glad I got 3 movies in again. It was kind of fun to have a theme. I got some knitting in, and yeah, so there we go. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will be back very soon with another video. Take care.